Good morning. Welcome back, everyone, and also welcome back to the people who are following via the live stream. Now, one word about the Hobart Lecture this year you might have seen. So we call it a Hobart Lecture because this is a series that was started by the diocese. Hobart was the first bishop of New York. And it had been discontinued, and with Bishop Shane we started it again, and we decided to host it here in St. Thomas. So it's a cooperation between the diocese and St. Thomas, and this year we have truly exceptional, I mean, even the last year and the previous years, but this year we are going to have Bishop Marian Buddy, you know who she is, and Pádraig, or Pádraig, sorry, I have to remember the pronunciation, Pádraig or Tuama, this Irish poet who I discovered is quite well known in some circles and not so much in others. So he is an Irish poet, youngish, he's in his 40s, early 40s. He was he tried to become a priest, a seminarian, but then, and I can sympathize with his story, he, at one point of his training, there was this document by the Pope saying, this was Pope Benedict saying that people with deep-seated gay tendencies could not become priests in the Catholic Church. Which was another of these declarations that it's doesn't make any sense. But anyway, so he was called by his bishop because he was quite outspoken about his being gay, and he basically was dismissed. He was asked to leave, and he started to write poetry. He became a mediator in the process of reconciliation between in Ireland there is this great problem of relationship between Catholic and Protestants, and great like animosity. And if we think a country is polarized here in the US, you know how hard it is. One of the most memorable things for me is visiting Belfast. Some 15 years ago. It's if you've never been, it's really visually you see how deeply divided this place is. There are roads. I remember these roads, main road with no windows. There were just doors, but no windows because it was at the border between the two the Presbyterians, the Catholics, and then you have this massive iron gates that were closed at night, at the walls that kind of separate the neighborhoods. So really you see visually that, and then you have these graffitis, immensely like violent, very graphic, that really, so everywhere there really reminds you of the violence, of the hatred. And so he was a mediator for this Corrimella community. And he's someone who deeply believes in the power of poetry to bring communities together and to overcome division. I'm going to say a word more about this. So he's someone who's really, I think, worth knowing and seeing. He also started a podcast during COVID, which is called Poetry Unbound, in which he takes poets from around the world and gives an analysis of those poems, discusses those poems. And this has been published in a book which has been very, very popular. And he's someone who makes poetry really accessible without dumbing down. I've been really struck by it. So having him coming to speak here is a real privilege. He was a theologian in residence, or poetry in residence, rather, at Heavenly Rest for some time. This is why he's very close to Bishop Hyde, a bishop. So he has a connection to the Episcopal Church and to New York. So in the first page you have the series of Sunday theology talks. So I hope you will buy the book, Kitchen Hymns. his book of poetry. And from the second section to the fourth, you have Do You Believe in God, the second session. The third, In a Garden by a Gate, and the fourth, Kitchen Hymns. These are the subtitles of sections in this book. Each one of them, there are probably 10 pages of poems. So I will focus on each one of these sections each time. And I'll remind you of that in my emails. So if you can read them beforehand, it's going to be helpful. But let's start. Today is more an introduction to Tuama. I sent you a poem. I hope you received it. It's called Do You Believe in God? So it's a bit like confusing because there is a poem initially in the introduction which is called Do You Believe in God? And then there is a section which is called Do You Believe in God with other poems of that title. So he uses the same title several times. This is a poem which is at the beginning of this collection of poetry. One thing I want to say before diving into the poem is the title, Kitchen Hymns, is quite interesting. So Kitchen Hymns, he was at a lecture one day about poetry, and he heard about kitchen hymns. So kitchen hymns are kind of hymnodies, like songs, sung by women, in particular, written by women, home in the rural places of Donegal, which is a county on the northeast of Ireland. Northwest? Okay, I kind of looked on the map today, and I thought it was northeast, but northwest. I mean, no, it might be. I think it
makes a difference.
Yeah.
Northeast
and northwest. Yeah.
The north.
Yeah. Okay. So it's not the east of the country. So it's the part where there is also Northern Ireland, and it is up there. Yeah. Right. Okay, yeah. So, well, look it up on the map. So that's it's always interesting when you find the name of a place to go and see where is this place exactly, right? And he got interested in those traditional songs because, as he explains in a quotation from an interview you find in your handout, page 2 of your handout, number 2, he says. It is a loose term, kitchen hymns, for hymnodies that were never allowed to be sung in a chapel because they weren't in Latin. They were songs, holy songs, sung in the kitchen, sung at home, probably composed by women, though nobody knows who they are composed by. The point of view of many of these old hymns is that of a woman who's holding a son of hers. So there is a malleability to time, a mix of joy and grief. There is the Marian Catholic approach, and then all the circumstances of sorrow that a parent goes through. Okay, and he quotes this sentence by Shakespeare: "Is a way of giving sorrow words." Okay, so that's just to explain the title, because I've been wondering myself. So I just want to go straight to the poem because I hope that once I've read it and given a very short kind of line-by-line analysis to it, we can have a little bit of a conversation about it. So the title, Do You Believe in God, explains also why we are focusing on this poem in a theology talk. I mean, this is this has not become the poetry talk. It is the theology talk. But obviously, poetry is one of the ways in which we can do theology. And what Pádraig Tuama tries to say is that there is a sense in which poetry maybe can give us access to themes of who God is, what faith really is better than theology or kind of intellectual approach to God can. And I believe that this is right. So I'm going to read the poem first. I know that you have read it already, but let me just do it. I don't believe in God, I said, and she said, oh, somehow I thought you'd managed to keep that going even though I haven't. She asked if I'd told others. Yes, I said, I have. I mean, it's not like I am saying I know about what is. It's just that the burden of belief isn't on me anymore. God, it feels much freer. I believe I'm in the room next to belief. I hear the sounds of prayers coming through the walls, like the smell of incense and the sound of fabric rustling fabric as the people stand or kneel. Sometimes I can tell the text by the intonation of the reader. I mutter the responses underneath my breath. Lift up your hearts. And do you, she asked, lift up your heart? Yes, I said, I do, but I don't know to who. Whom, she said. Let's get started on the soup. The conclusion is quite funny, right? So, as you can see, it is the style of the poem is very conversational. You know, it's a conversation. I say, you say, she said, you know. It mimics the back and forth of ordinary conversation. And the idea is to ground abstract conversations in lived intimacy. Okay. So keep your eyes on the poem if you can, so that you can see better the way in which it works. So I don't believe in God, I said, and she said, oh. So the poem opens in direct speech, and it drops us into an intimate exchange. You know, he, she, two friends, a son and his mother, a brother and a sister. The honesty is blunt, and the response, the answer here, oh, is gentle, is surprised, is not condemning. Okay. Somehow I thought you'd managed to keep that going, even though I haven't. You know, belief, right? So the admission of the woman mirrors that of the person who is the I. And the phrase "keep that going" makes belief sound like an effortful practice, something sustained rather than, spontaneous. You have to keep that going, And then she asked if I'd told others, which is surprising. So you can think that this is a reference to the social pressure that you might feel in some communities. I don't think it's true anymore today, obviously. I mean, people don't care whether you believe or you don't believe. So it's more that probably a suggestion of the fact that whether we believe or don't believe has a communal aspect, has a communal kind of impact. It's not just about what it does to me, whether I believe or I don't believe, but what it does to my way of relating to community. Yes, I said, I have, meaning I have told others. I mean, it's not like I am saying I know about what is. So you see, I know about what is capitalized. So it's almost a way of mocking the idea of absolute knowledge. And while he has said to others, no, I don't believe in God, he, in a sense, also doesn't claim certainty. He doesn't say, oh, I know that God does not exist. He simply says, I do not believe in God. And then he explains what he means by that. It's just that the burden of belief isn't on me anymore. God, it feels much freer. So belief is framed as a burden. So this is one of the key images of the text, the burden of belief. And at the same time, ironically, or I think, we can say ironically, he says, God, it feels much freer. So God is still in the picture. He says, I don't believe in God, but there is still a sense in which God is there, because he said, God, it feels much freer. So saying I do not believe in God becomes for him the way of having a much freer, that is much more authentic, a much deeper, relationship with God. So there is this tension in the text, which is confirmed by the fact that the next sentence starts by I believe. So I believe, what I believe in is different, but it starts by I believe. I believe I'm in the room next to belief. And this is probably the central metaphor of the poem, being in the room next to belief. And in the following lines, he explains what he means by that. And it is it becomes a bit more lyrical, and we have something like, we are kind of drawn into this room next to belief, in which the author of this poem is, or the voice of this poem is. I hear the sounds of prayers coming through the walls. I like the smell of incense and the sound of fabric, rustling fabric, as the people stand or kneel. Sometimes I can tell the text by the intonation of the reader. I mutter the responses underneath my breath. Lift up your hearts. You see how it becomes much more lyrical in that part. Now, something which is striking here is the sensory aspect of it. There is smell, there is sound, there's a reference to the sounds of prayers, the intonation of the reader, right? Then the body. Notice all the references to the body in this part. So to perceive the smell of incense, there is reference obviously to not only the sense of smell, but the body that does it. Then standing and kneeling. Then the intonation of the reader. Again, to do this you have to be to sing. It's a bodily activity. I mutter, so there is my mouth almost, automatically is spontaneously triggered by these perceptions. And then the breath, there's the breathing, the breath. So worship is embodied. So it is as if, is he just remembering all the times he has been at worship? Or, is he referring to an experience where he goes by a church and hears the sound? What he seems to say is that, that embodied aspect of worship, the sensory aspect of it, has left an imprint on him, has left a trace. Okay, and that's the thing that really stays with him. Says, I don't believe in God. Says, God is much freer. What do I mean? I mean that there is something in my body, something in my sensory experience that really keeps me, or talks to me, or explains to me who God is better than any idea or any knowledge or any certainty, certainly, about Him. Which makes me think, and I'll tell you a bit more at the end, that faith and belief are two different things here. So belief is more like, the creed, all the things we have to believe. Belief often is the normative aspect of faith. People who come to you and tell, if you don't believe this, you don't believe in God. If you don't say this, you're not really a Christian. The kind of proselytizing, the kind of propositional approach to faith. Whereas the faith itself is something that we receive not so much because we adhere to some ideas or some knowledge, but it's because there is something that really has struck us, or something that we have been familiar with even before we remember, those who have been to church as children, etc., that stays with you and speaks to you about God more than any other ideas. So it is as if even when you reject the ideas, that bodily imprint still keeps you or even better than the ideas, keeps you closer to God somehow. And he quotes a sentence, obviously, from the beginning of the Eucharistic prayer. Lift up your hearts, when the priest says, just before the preface, we lift them up to the Lord, right? And so there is this sentence comes to his mind, and notice that it refers to a bodily thing, the heart. Obviously, it's not the physical heart, but it's lift up your hearts. So that's the thing that comes back to his memory, or comes back through the walls in the room next to believe. So lift up your hearts. And she asks, and do you lift up your heart? And he replies, yes, I said, I do, but I don't know to whom. So he seems to say, I can worship, or I can lift the heart, or I can benefit from this, whatever that is, that remains with me even when I feel that I've left belief behind, even if I don't know to whom. And then, there is this little whom, she said, humorous and humanizing. It's a way of bringing him down to earth somehow. And ending with the soup brings faith to its real location, according to Tuama, not the mind, but the body. Not intellectual disquisitions about, faith, but the breaking of the bread. He talks about soup, but it's the breaking of the bread. So, in a sense, the Eucharist, but the Eucharist in its domestic, setting, where it was celebrated initially, in its original meaning, which is the sharing of a meal. And the idea is that, where is the location of faith, the real location of faith, is not in the lecture hall, is not in the books, in the Bible, etc., however important that is, but it is in the sharing of a meal, in the breaking of the bread. Mm-hmm. So you see, when you start looking into this poem more deeply, you find, there is a lot going on. And my observations somehow might be that faith is not the same as belief, right? And faith is more akin to belonging. What the author is here trying to suggest is that whatever remains, or whatever faith it is for him, is more something that brings him back to what he experienced when he was worshipping. And worshipping obviously means belonging to a community. We think that faith is about knowledge, but actually it is about the body, about the senses, and about the community. I'm going to read it again, and then I'd like to hear your how you react to this poem on one aspect in particular. We could talk about so many, but one is how might this poem expand our understanding of faith? What does this poem say about faith? I don't believe in God, I said. And she said, oh, somehow I thought you'd managed to keep that going even though I haven't. She asked if I'd told others. Yes, I said, I have. I mean, it's not like I'm saying I know about what is. It's just that the burden of belief is not on me anymore. God, it feels much freer. I believe I'm the room next to belief. I hear the sounds of prayers coming through the walls. I like the smell of incense and the sound of fabric rustling fabric as people stand or kneel. Sometimes I can tell the text by the intonation of the reader. I mutter the responses underneath my breath. Lift up your hearts. And do you, she asked, lift up your heart? Yes, I said, I do, but I don't know to who. Whom, she said. Let's get started on the soup. As you point out there, I hadn't thought about this before, but there is almost an opposition between the burden of belief that brings you down, and because he says, my heart is lifted, lift up your heart. And do you lift up your heart? She said, yes, I said. So whatever he is referring to by this is something that really lifts him up. So there is the burden, so belief brings you down somehow, or that what he means by belief here, which is and then in this kind of approach to faith that is more through the body, the sensory aspect of it, the community experience, is something that lifts him up. So there is this kind of tension, even like a movement within the poem. What you say is one of the key points of that Tuama kind of comes back to constantly, is vulnerability. So for him, the work of reconciliation and the work of a community is to become vulnerable with each other. So acknowledging our own doubts, our own difficulties, and he's very, very committed to bringing together people who are, really hate each other, really hate each other, and don't understand each other, and don't want to understand each other. So how do you do this? One of the ways is first displacing the conversation from ideas to shared experiences. And the other one is making himself vulnerable by, opening up. Okay, you say, I don't believe in God. Well, I too struggle with it. So it's a way, already you create a platform or a common space in which you can share an experience. So, yeah. So Tuama is gay, and and I can sympathize with so much, because when it comes to because when you come out as gay, you have also somehow to reject some beliefs that your church or your community thinks, oh, these are absolute. So belief here is something, it's a burden in that case. It's not, I don't want, it's not just the only aspect of it, but it's one that is very important in the life of the poet here. And the pressure is enormous, of course, because when you when you actually are a Christian, or let's say a Roman Catholic, and you belong to that community, and you are training for priesthood as he was, telling others is really means like being excluded, losing friends, having people treating you with suspicion, and on a personal level, for me, coming out was being literally cut off from 90% of the network is not the right word, the communities I had before, and being like having a torrent of emails and texts saying, oh, how disappointed I am, how shocked I am, etc., etc. So it's really heavy. So there is a communal aspect in faith. Of course, you never believe alone. You always receive belief from a community, learn how to believe in a community, develop that belief, by worshiping with other people, etc. So when you start having doubts, this really, in a sense, puts a wedge between you and the community. Unless the faith is more based on the idea of welcoming and worshipping together, and not kind of being judgmental about, what do you actually, how do you conceptualize your faith. This is why at the end, let's get started on the soup. I love, because we can disagree as much as we want, but we can always have a soup together, or let's have tea, right? So it's a way of in this case they are not disagreeing, but that's the value of a meal. A meal is something you can have even with someone you disagree with, and actually focusing on the soup can create a common ground. On which you can probably then, find other points of connection with the person, the sections. So for next time, if you'd like to, I'll give you exactly the pages. But if you can read the section whose title, not just the poem, but the section, the title is "Do You Believe in God?" There are probably 4 or 5 poems. I will choose one of those because we can do more than one poem each time. And hopefully next time we can share a bit more if you have read it beforehand. Okay, and then if you are interested in taking part on the Thursday reading group, just please register, and I'll send you more details, more information tomorrow. Good. Have a lovely rest of the day. God bless you.